Hi, I'm Libba Bray, and they have foolishly put me in front of a camera. You're warned. Some of my earliest memories are actually of being read to. I grew up in a family where reading was incredibly important, and a family of storytellers too. I grew up in the South where there is such a great tradition of storytelling. And I remember, one of my earliest memories was of going to the Corpus Christi Public Library. And I can still see the way that that building looked. It was sort of like a round building, and there were these, it was the 70s, so it was like 70s architecture, which doesn't usually make you think of beauty. It makes you think Logan's Run. But this building, I just remember that there were all these windows and that the light would come in, and I really did, perhaps it's hazy memory, but I really do remember it as being this sort of like, and my mother would take me to the library, I think every 2 weeks, and I remember reading all of Laura Ingalls Wilder. I remember reading Charlotte's Web. I loved the Madeline books, and I loved Madeline because she was sort of subversive. Madeline and Max from Where the Wild Things Are. So I liked, I liked the subversive ones. I know you're shocked. And the Bread and Jam for Francis. I loved animal books. But I absolutely remember being read to, and that my parents were big readers. And so it wasn't just that I was being read to, it was that I was seeing in action, oh, reading is pleasurable. Reading is a thing that is enjoyable, you covet that reading time. And my father was a big reader of history and biographies, so he was often telling me these stories. And my mother, who ended up being a high school English teacher, gave me some of my most beloved books. I'm sure I resisted them at every turn because she was my mother, but I remember that she got me to read Sounder and Where the Red Fern Grows, which are both really sad books. Thanks, Mom. And she got me to read To Kill a Mockingbird, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. She was a huge influence as well. And and of course there were all these great family stories, and both my mother and my father were great storytellers, and my grandmother too, my maternal grandmother. So I just remember that always being surrounded by story. And the last thing, which is not incidental, is that when I was a young child, my father was a Presbyterian minister. So growing up in the church, I was hearing those stories as well. And often when I'm asked about what were the first ghost stories that you ever heard, I'll say, well, the Bible. The Bible is really scary stuff, man, especially when you're a kid. And this is what happens. This is what happens if you read to your children.